Good evening and welcome to the third class in our series on the theology of illness. We're looking at Emunah and anxiety, and it's a little bit odd to be doing this class as a straight recording instead of with our shir and the full discussion and so on, but such is life with the snow. So let's get started. Please note, as I've said on the other classes in the series and in general, nothing that I say in this series should be taken as psak. We're just discussing the halachic issues that are involved. And I'll also note that our next series, God willing, will start on Monday evening, February 25th, with Rav Usher Weiss on weddings. We will be looking at three fascinating topics that he deals with in his responsa. First, we'll be asking the question of whether Lavan is correct. What are the rules in terms of shidduch priorities within a family? Second, we will be looking at the Bisli wedding ring, classic case. You hear about these things happening from time to time where children or teens engage in some form of wedding ceremony, and the question is, does it have any halachic status? As well as the third question, which is the long bedeken, what happens when the ksuba is dated one day, however the chuppah actually ends up happening after sunset. But for tonight, we're talking about balancing emunah and anxiety. As we said in our first class in the series, anxiety may be specific. It may involve panic attacks with particular triggers, specific phobias. And it may be generalized anxiety disorder, which, as we defined it, includes persistent and excessive anxiety and worry about activities or events. Even in ordinary routine issues, the worry is out of proportion to the actual circumstance, is difficult to control, and affects how you feel physically. Anxiety may have biological elements, or it may reflect a lack of strong coping mechanisms psychologically, resulting in an inability to manage uncertainty. For our purposes, the key point here is that living with anxiety may prevent people from putting their faith in God. And here I turn to two questions which come from emails I have received. Question number one: if someone is by nature a worrier, does this necessarily downgrade his bitachon or emunah score? I imagine the person who sent me the question was hypothesizing some kind of rating on how our bitachon or emunah is. If someone is a worrier, so they don't trust that everything is going to be okay, does that downgrade their bitachon or emunah score? Second question: how can someone who experiences anxiety, clinical or otherwise, come to emunah in a God whose existence cannot be proved? So, in order to address these very good questions, we need to really define emunah, we need to define bitachon, and ask what it is that Hashem expects of us, which is why this is part of a series on the theology of illness. We need to talk theology. So, what are emunah and bitachon? So, emunah in God. I resort to the Rambam. The Rambam speaks a lot about emunah, about what one must believe in his Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, as his work of law, in his commentary to the Mishnah in the last or next to last chapter of Mishnah in Sanhedrin, as well as in his Moreh Nevuchim, his Guide of the Perplexed. Looking at his Sefer HaMitzvos first, at his collection of the 613 mitzvahs, if you take a look at source number 1 on the sheet, the Rambam lists, start before that. The Rambam in general identifies 5 things one must believe regarding God. So, number 1, knowledge that God is the cause of all. And in source number 1, I brought that for you from the very first mitzvah in his Sefer HaMitzvos, his book of the 613 mitzvahs. He writes, HaMitzvah HaRishona hi atzivu yashet tzivanu laha'aminu elokus. The first mitzvah is that we must believe in divinity. V'hu shenamin sheyesham ila v'siba hu po'el l'chol hanimtzaos. To believe that there is a catalyst for all that exists. That's the pasuk, last week's parsha. I am Hashem your God. Not for right now. Discussion of whether that's actually a mitzvah or simply God introducing himself. The Rambam believes it is indeed a mitzvah. Bases himself on the Gemara at the end of Makos, which arrives at a calculation for the 613 mitzvot by saying that Moshe commanded us 611, and then Hashem commanded us 2, those 2 being Anochi and Lo Yiyeh, the first 2 of the 10 commandments. How that math works, some of the questions that arise, are interesting, but not for right now. The bottom line is, there is a mitzvah to know that God is the cause of all things. Right now we said to believe. We'll see the Rambam say to know in source number 2. He writes, this is in his work of law, his Mishnah Torah, Yisod ha-Yisodos v'amud ha-Chochmos, the foundation of foundations, the pillar of wisdoms. Leida sheyesham matzui rishon, is to know that there is a first. V'hu mamtzi kol nimtza, which is what caused everything that is found. V'chol ha-nimtzeim mishamayim v'aretz u'mashem beinehem lo nimtzeu ela me'amitas hi matz'o. And all that exists, all that is found in heaven and earth and everything in between, only there because of the truth of the one, capital O, who made it found. In other words, God. Everything that exists is caused by God. God is the cause of all things. That's the first point the Rambam makes about Hashem. Second, appropriately enough, is that there is no second. There is no other. The Rambam in the first Lo Saseh, the first prohibition in the Torah, HaMitzvah Rishona Mitzvah, this is source number 3. HaMitzvah Rishona Mitzvah Lo Saseh, Hi Shehizhiranu Me'ha'amin Ha'elokus Lezula So Yis'aleh. Is that we are warned not to believe in any divinity other than God. V'hu amar Yis'aleh lo yeh lecha, you shall not have ... So first, believe that God is the cause of all. Second, there is no other. And then, in addition to that, from the Shema, we draw that God is unity, that God has no body, that God is immortal. So if you take a look at source number 4, sorry, just need to make one note. Source number 4, also from the Rambam's Sefer HaMitzvos, his second commandment, V'mitzvah hasheni hi hatzivui shetzivanu be'emunas hayichud. We must believe that God is one. Shetzivanu be'emunas hayichud v'ushanam in kipol hametzius v'sibaso harishona echad. To believe that the creator of all that exists and its first cause are one. V'hu amro yis'aleh Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. We say Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. The Rambam in Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah, Perek Aleph Halacha Zayin, links more to that pasuk of Shema. Not only does that pasuk teach me that Hashem is one, but also Elokah ze echad hu ve'eino shnayim v'lo yeser el shnayim ele echad. God is only one, not two, not more than two. V'lo echad ki guf shu nechlak lemachlakos l'ktzavos, and he's not one like a body, like a physical entity, which can be divided into divisions, it can be divided into extremes. It's a pure oneness. And because he has no body, therefore that which happens to bodies, i.e. deterioration, does not happen to him. Knowing this is a commandment, you have to know this. Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. Indivisible, immortal, no physicality. All of these are beliefs that the Rambam says we have to accept about Hashem, and he even used the verb back in source number 2, leida. You have to know. He requires knowledge. We have to come back to that knowledge and what exactly that means. But these are all under the heading of Emunah, that which one believes. We're going to come back to the word Emunah itself. That is an important word. Not there yet. Then we talk about bitachon. And there are different definitions of the term bitachon. Bitachon literally, you could probably render it as trust, but even there are multiple options to explain what that word means. If you take a look at source number 6, Gemara in Ta'anis gives us one important precedent for this discussion of bitachon. Why was Nachum ish Gamzu named Nachum, the man of, literally Gamzu? Gamzu means also this. Why was he called that? Because whatever happened to him, Amar Gamzu L'Tova. He said, this is also for the best. Once, the Jews wanted to send a gift to the Caesar. Amru Man Yezel. They said, well, who's going to go? Yezel Nachamish Gamzu D'Malumat Benisimhu. Send Nachamish Gamzu. He is practiced in miracles. And they sent a chest of gems with him. And then, as the story continues in the Gemara, I did not translate the full thing on the sheet. Azal bas bahu dira belelia. Well, you can break that sentence up in different ways. Bottom line is, he went to a certain place to stay, and he slept there overnight. And during the night, kamu hanach diurai v'shaklinu l'siftei umalunu ha'afra. People in the house got up in the middle of the night, and they took his chest and they filled it with dirt, and they took away all the gems. Kimata Hasam, he arrives there. Sharinu l'sifta, he opens up the chest. Chazinu t'malu afra, and lo and behold, they see it's filled with dirt. Ba Malkal Mikdalinu Lakulu. The king wants to kill all the Jews who had brought this chest. Amar Kamachaychu b'Yudai. He said, the Jews are mocking me. Maybe he wanted to kill even more than those who sent him. Maybe he wants to attack the Jews overall. Amar Gamzu L'Tova. Nachum says Gamzu L'Tova, and you may be familiar with the way the story plays out. It all works out. Everything works out well for Nachum and for the Jews. Second story, source number 7. Story of Rabbi Akiva. Amar Hunam Arav Mishum Rabbi Meir v'Chintana Mishmed Rabbi Akiva. It was taught in the name of Rabbi Meir. It was also taught in the name of Rabbi Akiva. Person should be accustomed to say that everything God does, He does for the best. Rabbi Akiva was traveling on the road. He arrived at a certain town. He wanted a place to stay. They wouldn't give him a place to stay. No vacancies. Amar called Abed Rahman Latav. He says, whatever God does is for the best. Yeah, the people in the city were the ones who did it. But he views this as something from Hashem, and he says it's for the best. Azalu bas bedabra. So he goes to stay for the night out in the wild. But he's not alone. He has a rooster, he has a donkey, he has a lamp. Asa zika kavi l'shraga. Well, along comes the wind and blows out the lamp. Asa shunra achle l'tarnagola. Cat comes along and eats the rooster. No goats available. Asa Aryeh achle lechamra, and along comes a lion and eats the donkey. Amar called David Rahman Latav, and Rabbi Akiva says that whatever God does is for the best. Be'beloya asa gaisa shavia lamasa. Well, armed men invade the town, sack the town overnight. Amar lo, and Rabbi Akiva says to his students or whoever would listen, Lav Amri Luchu, didn't I tell you? Everything Hashem does is for the best. Had he been equipped with a rooster, had he been equipped with a donkey, they would have heard the animals. Had he been equipped with a lamp, they would have seen the light. So that would have been very bad for Rabbi Akiva. Everything that happened actually was for the good. So there are two classic ways to read this idea that Nachum Ish Gamzu expresses, that Rabbi Akiva expresses. One way to read the idea is the approach of Maharal. Maharal in his Nesiv HaBitachon, which I brought you in source number 8. This is from his larger work, Nativot Olam. He says, I believe God is in charge, and therefore I will have a result that I like. This is why Rabbi Akiva said everything Hashem does is for the good. Klomar, meaning, he trusts in God. There's that word, bitachon. He trusts in God that whatever happens to him is for the good. And because of his trust in God, that which happens to him is done for the good, out of something which had appeared to be bad. So since he is confident that Hashem is running the show, it looks bad, but that is actually good. Now, you can read this Maharal to say that actually the bad becomes good as a result of his bitachon, as a result of his faith. We find a similar idea in Rashi in Tehillim, in source number 9. Pasuk, which hopefully people are somewhat familiar with, Yoshev b'Seser Elyon b'Tzel Shakai Yislo Nan. It speaks to somebody who dwells in the shelter of Hashem. He lives, as I translated here, in the shadow of Shakai. So Rashi writes, Mishu Choseh b'Seser Kanfei Hashchina, one who dwells in the shelter of the divine presence, hu yislonan, or yislonan, bitzilo shakadosh baruch hu megin olav. That person will live in Hashem's shadow with God protecting him. Meaning, if you take cover in the shelter of Hashem, Hashem will protect you. In other words, the idea here is not only that there is a belief that God is in charge, but because I believe that God is in charge, the result I get will be a positive one. I'm going to get help from Hashem. Rav Yosef Albo in his Sefer Ikarim goes really far with this idea. In source number 10, he writes, "V'atikva hi al gimel panim." He talks about 3 different kinds of hope. And he says, "B'tikvat hachesed hi hayoseh meshubachas shebakulan." The best kind of hope, the top kind of hope, is when you hope for Hashem to do something for you that you don't deserve. As opposed to saying, I deserve it, you say, I don't deserve it, but I hope that Hashem will help me anyway. I hope Hashem will provide chesed. But he says, "Elashein hamekaveh batuach kol kach sheyinaseh lo kilevavo kol asher tishal nafsho." But he's not so confident that he's going to get everything he asks for. Because he looks at himself and he says, you know what, I don't deserve for God to do things for me for nothing. So he thinks to himself, maybe Hashem won't want to give to me. And as a result, he doesn't really anticipate getting what he wants. If he really hoped for it, Hashem would not withhold it. Because Hashem wants to provide for those who hope properly. Amar HaKasav, the pasuk says, Hashem desires those who revere Him, those who hope for His chesed. What keeps chesed from arriving is if you don't hope properly. In other words, again, it's bitachon is not only I believe that God is in charge, but also that belief, if done properly, is actually going to bear fruit. The fact that the person who hopes for chesed doesn't get it is because he doesn't fully believe that Hashem is going to provide it for him. And finally, one more source from Rav Chaim Volozhin, Nefesh HaChaim. Ube'emes hu inyan gadol usgula nifla lahaser ulevatel me'alav kol dinin uritzonos acherim shlo yuchlu lishlot bo v'lo yasu shum roshim klal. He says, you want to know how to avoid having the decrees of others and desires of others affect you? Here is the way to avoid it. When a person establishes in his heart to say, Halo Hashem hu Elokim ha'amiti, God is the true God. Ve'ein od milevado yizbarach shum koach ba'olam v'chol ha'olamos klal. There is no other force besides Him. V'akol malei rak achduso ha'pashut yizbarach shemo. And everything is filled only with Hashem as one. That's it. So a person concentrates on that and believes that and establishes that in his heart. And he says, I'm not going to believe in anything else. And he only sticks to belief in Hashem. As a result of that level of confidence, all of those other concerns, all of the decrees of others, all the wills of others can't touch him. That's it. Just believe in Hashem, and you will be paid for it. Hashem will provide all the things that you want. So really, what this means is that you can believe not only, again, that Hashem is in charge, but also that Hashem will give you that which you want. That Hashem will give you good things as a consequence of your belief. That's one school of thought. And then you would read Rabbi Akiva and Nahum Ish Gamzu as saying, it's all for the best. It's going to be for the best because Hashem is going to provide the best for me, or at least the good. I'm never quite sure whether Latav should be read as for the best, which is the way it's usually translated, or simply as being for the good. In source number 12, I gave you a link to an article by Rabbi Daniel Stein, The Limits of Religious Optimism, the Chazon Ish, and the Alter of Novardok on Bitachon. And in that article, he brings you many sources that he believes support this perspective on Bitachon. However, he also notes that the Chazon Ish does not think that this is correct at all. Take a look at source number 13 from the Chazon Ish's work, Emunah Ubitachon. Ta'us noshenes nis'azricha b'leiv rabim b'musag bitachon. He says, an old mistake has become ensconced in the heart of many regarding bitachon. This bitachon, which is an elevated, exalted, and fundamental trait in the mouths of the pious. It has become a duty to believe that in every circumstance a person encounters where he faces an uncertain future, and there are two possibilities, it could go one way, it could go the other way, it could be good and it could be not good. For a person to believe it will be good, and if he is unsure of that, he's unsure that Hashem will make it good for him, then he is lacking bitachon. He says that's not what bitachon means. Unless there's been a prophecy that has said, this is what's going to happen, the future is not determined. You can't say what's going to be. You can't say, well, I know it's all going to be good because of my faith. It doesn't work that way. You want to know what bitachon is? It's simply Emunah. It's belief that everything that happens, as the Rambam said before, is a consequence of divine decree. And so you go back to the stories of Rabbi Akiva and of Nachum Ish Gamzu, and what they're simply saying is, it's from Hashem. That's it. And therefore, by definition, it is good, whether I experience it as good or not. Rav Aaron Lichtenstein, in source number 14, clarifies the position. Yes, we trust that Hashem will help, but we also accept that the help may not be forthcoming, and that is also from God. Take a look at number 14. The attribute of trust is thus antinomic, i.e. it contains conflicting aspects. On the one hand, trust demands that a person be convinced that God will assist him. On the other hand, it demands that a person be prepared for a time when, God forbid, help will not be forthcoming. That it is so on the one hand, you're convinced God will assist, but on the other hand, you know that may not happen. That it is antinomic makes it more difficult to teach, but the model nonetheless exists. And he says the model is Rabbi Akiva. Let us recall that our tradition preserves the account of a towering and heroic figure, Rabbi Akiva. He was full of faithful trust and optimism, convinced that the Jewish people would be restored to sovereignty and spiritual greatness in their land. In the sound of Bar Kokhba's advancing footsteps, he heard the approaching herald of messianic redemption. On the other hand, his life was a paradigm of loving trust, for he literally fulfilled the verse in Iyov, though he may slay me, still I will trust in him. Rabbi Akiva hoped. He anticipated the best and believed that it would transpire. Yet when this did not come to pass, when faced with a cruel and painful death in this last most bitter hour, he smiled. As he explained to Turnus Rufus, the wicked Roman governor, his smile was not an indication of, quote, belittling of suffering, but rather a sign of great bitachon. He believes it is from Hashem, even as he acts, even as he's mishtadel. He's despite this level of belief, and then even when he suffers, he absolutely believes. Now, how will the Chazon Ish deal with sources that see bitachon bringing a level of reassurance? Right? Like Yoshe B'Seisir Elyon. So what will he do with that? If he believes that bitachon is just trust that Hashem runs the show, but not that necessarily things must be good, I would think that the way to take this is that fear of divine abandonment is worse than fear of a bad outcome. Fear of divine abandonment is worse than fear of a bad outcome. So when we say it is all good, we don't mean it is good in the sense that I'm going to get everything I want. It is good in the sense that Hashem is watching and managing everything that happens, that He is mashgiach, that He is overseeing everything. So we have different definitions of bitachon, and that's going to matter a great deal when we turn to answer our questions. How do you know that you actually have to have bitachon either way, this belief that Hashem runs the show, and maybe that it's going to be good because we believe it? If I take the Chazon Ish's view, then it's just like general Emunah. Just like we said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the Rambam said you have to believe that Hashem creates all and moves all. That's your source for having to believe in this bitachon concept. It's the same thing. If I take the view that we associate here with Maharal, it doesn't sound like Anochi. The idea that it's going to be good, that you're going to be rewarded for it, is a completely separate point. Believe that Hashem is going to help you or reciprocate for you. So, Rabbi Daniel Stein, in that essay that I mentioned before, shows multiple sources for this. In number 15, Rabbeinu Yonah states that the mitzvah bitachon is derived from the specific directive given to soldiers to trust in God and not fear bodily harm in battle. When the soldiers get their instructions about how they should not be afraid when they go to war. That's one possibility. Rabbi Eliezer Azikri, Sefer Charedim, asserts that the obligation of wholehearted bitachon is implied by the verse, "You shall be whole with the Lord your God." Tamim tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha. As he writes, from this we can derive the mitzvah to trust in God with all one's heart. Additionally, Rabbi Meir Simcha of Devinsk, the Meshech Chochmah, claims that the mitzvah, and to him you shall cling, uvo sidbak, is expressed through bitachon in God's protection and abilities. So, different ways that you can associate it with psukim. So again, here are our questions. What if I cannot believe that all will be good? Number one. And number two, how can I bring myself to believe in God's existence before bitachon, basic emunah, when that cannot be proved? A person who has an anxiety disorder, they have trouble dealing with anxiety, with uncertainty. How do they deal with these things? So in terms of the first question, I think the answer is now obvious, right? What if I can't believe that all will be good? So, yes, it's not going to fit the Maharal's view of bitachon, certainly of ideal bitachon. But according to the Chazon Ish's view, I don't have to believe that all will be good. I just need to believe that Hashem will do as Hashem sees fit, whatever that is. The further of Aaron Lichtenstein, actually, in By His Light, page 157, I didn't bring it on the sheet, is actually willing to say Elu ve'elu here, and to say that there's no obligation to paskin this and decide like the Maharal. You could certainly follow the view of the Chazon Ish. All I need to believe is not, it's going to be good. I just have to bring myself to believe that it is from Hashem. Now, that's going to lead into our second question is, but I can't prove Hashem's existence. Understood. But in terms of the anxiety aspect of, I can't believe it's all going to be good, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm nervous, that's not a violation of bitachon. So that's how I would answer the first question. What about the second question, though? What about the person who has anxiety and cannot bring himself to believe in the unprovable, God's existence? So there certainly is reason to think that Emunah requires certainty. You look at the word Emunah itself, right? Moshe's hands in the war against Amalek, Vayi Yadav Emunah. It is to endure. It is to be firm. Rabbi Michael Rosenzweig, in an essay, which I gave you the link for in number 16, says, Emunah conveys both affirmation and deep-seated conviction. Amen, as well as unshakable loyalty, trust, and reliance, ne'emanut. So it is loyalty, it is affirmation, and the terms that he uses, the modifiers he uses, unshakable, deep-seated, those are really important. Intellectual awareness, or even reasoned demonstration of divine existence, is insufficient if it is unaccompanied by unswerving dedication and commitment to the divine will. It is the fact that one is firm and unshakable and unswerving. That's really what is necessary to qualify as Emunah. So I would say Emunah does require certainty. There's a fascinating play on words. In Yeshaya, Perek Zayin, Yeshaya speaks to King Achaz, who is afraid of invasions from the Assyrians, invasions from the Syro-Ephraimite alliance of Yisrael and Aram, and he doesn't know what to do. He wants to join an alliance with somebody bigger than him for protection. And Yeshaya says to him, Im lo sa'aminu ki lo se'amenu. If you do not believe, you will not endure. Which is actually based on Pasuk in Divrei Hayamim Beis, Parakaf Pasuk Chaf, in which King Yehoshaphat encouraged the nation, saying that if you will be ma'amin, then te'amin, you will stand firm. So it's a play on this Emunah. Excuse me. Rabbi Yoel Ben Nun and Rabbi Benny Lau point this out in their book on Yeshaya Ketzipurim Afot. So the word Emunah itself connotes an element of unshakable certainty. The Rambam said, we saw before, that the mitzvah is to know. Leida, you have to know. In source number 17, the Rambam writes, in his commentary to, again, the last parak in Sanhedrin, or the next to last parak in Sanhedrin, depending on your order, V'kasher yipakpeik ha'adam b'yesod me'elu ha'yesodos, when a person challenges any of these fundamentals, hareza yatzam ha'klal v'kafar be'ikar, he has left the community, he has denied the essence. So, yeah, and the Rambam talks about how believing incorrectly is actually avodah zarah. So, yes, it sounds like you need certainty. And yet, not necessarily, for a couple of reasons. First of all, because being on a path seeking emunah may in and of itself be sufficient to qualify as a ma'amin. Rav Chazai Kreshkish, in his Or Hashem, the section called Hatza'ah, objects to emunah as a required mitzvah on multiple grounds. One of his arguments is that it is a circular obligation, meaning if you believe in Hashem and in mitzvos and so on, then you're going to do it. You have belief. But if you don't believe, then you will feel no imperative to fulfill this mitzvah. That's number one. Number two, since belief is not a function of choice, but rather of evidence, that's what he argues. He says you believe something because it is proven to you, so you're not subject to free will. Either someone proved it, in which case you have to believe it, or they didn't prove it, in which case you don't believe it. He paints a fairly black and white view of how belief works. Dan Isaac Abarbanel responds in source number 18 in his Rosh Amanah, and he says no. He says you can't achieve those beliefs. You cannot achieve emunah unless you first take certain intellectual steps that prepare you for those beliefs. He says without a doubt, without any doubt, he says those steps are steps one takes willingly, as a choice. V'shioniknos bisman, he acquires them over time. Kila adam sheyirtza lishmoa v'lilmod u'lelamed l'das osam advarim shechayvu v'yolidu emunah b'nafsho. If a person wants to learn, teach, know that which produces emunah, which produces belief in his soul, or he doesn't want to involve himself in it, it's a function of choice. The Rambam did not say that the mitzvah is the form of emunah and its truth. But rather to know those things and to learn those things that bring a person to emunah. So Dan Isaac Abarbanel believes that the mitzvah of belief is not to believe, but rather to take the steps that are necessary in order to achieve belief. So being on a path, actively seeking emunah, may be sufficient. In which case, the word emunah may be taken to mean that one endures by searching, even if one is not yet steadfast, or that one is amin in one's practice, that one is firm in one's practice while searching. A person has committed and said, I'm going to continue to live as a Jew while I take the steps necessary to bring myself to emunah, however many days, months, years, decades it may take for me to achieve the goal. That's number one. Number two, some argue that between belief and disbelief lies a state of ignorance. And that's not the same thing as heresy or lack of emunah. Rabbi Nathanael Wiederblank, in a shir that's available on YU Torah on Emunah, points out that Rashi seems to think this. Source number 19. One of the classic stories involving a Roman who came to Hillel apparently mocking Torah and ends up converting to Judaism. A Jew comes to Shammai, and says to him, so how many Torahs do you have? Shammai says, 2. There's the written Torah, there's the spoken Torah. He says, I believe you about this written text, but not this verbal thing. So, convert me to Judaism on condition that you'll teach me the written Torah. That's what I want. Shammai chases him away. Balifnei Hillel, Gairei comes to Hillel, and Hillel says, deal. He converts him. Yoma Kama Omerle, Aleph Beis Gimel Daled. This is the classic. Hillel, the first day, teaches him 4 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph Beis Gimel and Daled. Tells him, go home, study, come back tomorrow. Lamachar, the next day, Apichle, Hillel reverses it. Whether that means Tafshin Reish Kuf, or whether that means he reverses the Dalet to the Aleph, I don't know. But he reverses it, and he shows him letters on the board, and he shows him, and he says, Tafshin Reish Kuf, and the guy says to him, what are you talking about? Amar Le, that's not what you told me yesterday. Amar Lo, Lava Lai Didika Samchas. He says to him, oh, so you need to rely on me to tell you what the letters of the alphabet are. That, on the most basic level, you can't read the alphabet without a rabbinic tradition. So depend on me also about Torah Shebaal Peh in general. In other words, the major point that Hillel is trying to make, separate from our shir, is that everything requires a tradition. Your dictionary is a tradition. It's a tradition of how I translate these words. People get all hung up on Pshat versus Drash, and the Drash is the rabbis, and the Pshat is the simple read. You're kidding yourself. Pshat is also a tradition. And that's the point that Hillel makes to this fellow. But we have to go back a step. Hillel converted this man. Now, the Gemara in Yevamos talks about a person who says, I want to convert to Judaism, but I don't accept this one point of Judaism. And the rule is you can't convert him. So how does Hillel convert this fellow whose one point of Judaism that he's refusing is Torah Shebaal Peh? So Rashi here, still in source 19, says the following: Gairei, he converted him. V'samach al chochmaso shesofo sheyagilenu lekabel alav. Hillel relies on his own wisdom that he is going to get this fellow to accept Torah Shebaal Peh. This is not the same thing as somebody who says, I want to become a Jew except that I don't want to accept one aspect of Judaism. This person, this Roman fellow, was not denying Torah Shebaal Peh. He just hadn't reached the point of believing that it was from God. He is in an in-between state of ignorance. And Hillel was confident that this fellow would come to rely on him. That teaches me that one is not called a denier if he lacks belief. That's the way that Rashi frames it. Ditto, Tosfos in Yevamos, Chavdalad Amud Beis, regarding the fellow who came to Hillel and said, convert me so that I can be Kohen Gadol. Right? The Gemara there talks about not converting for the sake of getting prizes and getting wealth and whatever else. So Tosfos asks about conversions that appear to be for the sake of status, including that Gemara in Shabbos. So he writes in source number 20, V'hahi, the Perek Beis de Shabbos, Hahu da'as l'kamei de Hillel v'almar gerini amanas le'asas Kohen Gadol, the fellow who says, convert me on condition that I'm going to become Kohen Gadol, but tuach haya Hillel, the sof alas l'shem shemayim. Hillel said, I'm going to get him in the end to convert l'shma. And the Shach, in Yeridea, Reish Samach Ches Se'iv Katan Chav Gimel, endorses this option for a Beis Din to work on this basis. Rabbi Wiederblank contends in his shir that that's why the Chazon Ish says that Tinok Shenishba includes somebody who never learned. And that he is not a kofar. In other words, the Chazon Ish says that somebody who never learned anything about Judaism is not called a heretic. Why? Same idea. Because he's not. He just doesn't know. So you could suggest, going back again to our question, the question that we have here is someone who has anxiety. What is he supposed to do about the mitzvah of Emunah? He can't bring himself to believe in that which cannot be proved. So number one, you can make the argument. Well, number one, it sounds like from the Rambam, Emunah does require certainty. However, you could make the argument that being on a path, seeking Emunah, making those steps, trying to learn that which one can learn in order to achieve that, may be sufficient a la Abarbanel. And number two, along the lines of Rashi, a person who says, I don't know, is not necessarily considered heretical. What will you do then with the term Emunah, which again indicates certainty? So the answer may be that it reflects a firm practice. Again, not necessarily a firm belief, but a firm practice. Maybe you can make that argument. Last note that I wanted to indicate here, from Aaron Lichtenstein in an essay called "The Source of Faith is Faith Itself," and I gave you a link online. You can find the essay. He says something which I think would be useful for people who are dealing with issues of anxiety. He says, first of all, look at people rather than at proof. He says, what I received from all my mentors at home or in yeshivot was the key to confronting life, particularly modern life, in all its complexity. The recognition that it was not so necessary to have all the answers as to learn to live with the questions. Regardless of what issues, moral, theological, textual, or historical, vexed me, I was confident that they had been raised by masters far sharper and wiser than myself, and if they had remained impregnably steadfast in their commitments, so should and could I. So confidence in mentors can help a person who is living with a challenging level of uncertainty and having a hard time dealing with that. Know that others have had this. Know that brilliant minds have had this. And they have found their way. That's number one. Number two, he talks about the encounter with God rather than evidence. He says, to those, quote, struggling to develop faith, one can, however, prefer first the reassuring assertion of the religious significance of the quest per se, as in the footsteps of Avram Avinu, that they have already become the Vakshei Hashem. Second, the prospective hope of successful resolution, as the Lord is good unto them that yearn for Him, to the soul that seeketh Him. Tov Hashem lekovav lenefesh tidrushenu, that seeking has value in and of itself. And third, the counsel to focus persistently, in terms of Coleridge's familiar distinction, upon faith rather than belief, upon experiential trust, dependence, and submission, more than upon catechetical, I hope I pronounced that right, catechetical dogmatics. Intellectual assent is normative and essential, but at the personal level, it is generally not the key. In the final analysis, the primary human source of faith is faith itself. The truth is that I should have brought more of the essay here, I can see that. But he speaks of the encounter with God as being more important than the issue of evidence. And the more one immerses oneself in that, the easier it becomes to find it. The key ultimately, though, is to be among the kovim, to be among those who seek. There is much more to be said here. This really would have benefited from the discussion that would have come from having the shiur live, but due to the weather, this is what we have for this evening. Thank you.